In this video, we are going to start up our Koba's critiques again. We're going to cover the AR-15 in a shit hits the fan scenario and go through all the different critiques there. But before we get into it, if you would please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, and if you could, become a member. Alright, so it's kind of probably like, are you even going to critique this? Alright. The AR-15 platform and the way this rifle works was developed in the late 50s, was adopted by the United States military in the early 1960s, and is still used today, all these years later, over 60 years later, as a standard system, rifle system for the United States military. And I think it's the longest that any rifle system has been in service with the U.S. military, is this gun here. And whenever you have a weapon that's used by the U.S. military for a long period of time, much like the 1911, and I know a lot of the younger guys complain to everybody the stories of the 1911 and the pistol and the .45 caliber. Whenever the government uses something or the military uses it continuously for a long period of time, and especially years ago when we had wars, and there was a draft until 1975, I think, continuously. People not familiar with guns, those are the only firearms that they've been exposed to, handled, and used, and to them, if the military's used it for all these years, then it's got to be the best thing out there. Okay, it's just a weird thing. And same with the AR. Now, the one thing about the AR-15 is it is modular, and you can fairly easily disassemble this gun with a few tools and, some knowledge. Okay, it ain't real simple, but like changing the handguards, changing the stock, if you can change the oil in your car, you can do some basic modifications to this weapons platform. Okay. Alright, so another thing also, it's probably the most popular rifle in the United States in general, but it's also the one that people are trying to control, ban, outlaw, and everything. It's at the very top of their list. Okay, so let's start with the critique. Before shit hits the fan, society collapses. Okay, compact, lightweight gun, good magazine, detachable magazine, capacity, and everything. It scores a 15. Okay. It's kind of like if you don't have one, or if you're unfortunate enough to live where these things are not allowed, okay, you should at least have one, or have tried out the thing, or even just learn how to use it. So yes, it scores very high. Home defense. Now, home defense is another argument that people bring up. Truthfully, for home defense, you should use like a shotgun, a 12-gauge shotgun, a pump, or like when I showed you the side-by-sides with the short shells are excellent for home defense. Especially if you live in an apartment or in a crowded residential area. And even here, if I shoot one of these through the wall of my house, it's 50 yards, maybe 40 yards to the neighbor's house. I could penetrate into their home shooting through the back of, through the walls of my house. So home defense, unless it's alien invasion or something, not a good gun. You should have something else. So I'm going to give that a 5 for home defense. Now again, just like with the SKS and 30-30 lever action, if you live on a ranch or if your home, has acres and acres of your land around it and you live in the middle of nowhere, then yes, then it would score a 10. So it's not for the average person. But if you're out into hinterlands there and that, then it scores higher. It's a 10 for home defense. Hunting. You can hunt with these. There's nothing wrong with it with the scope. You just put I guess you're only supposed to have 5 rounds, but there are 5-round magazines available, limited capacity to go hunt. I know people that like to hunt coyotes with them, varmint hunting. Deer, something like a deer, I don't know, maybe with a 77 grain bullet or something that's got enough knockdown to nail a deer in the .223 caliber. Now if you got a 6.5 Grendel, a 6.8 Remington Special Purpose, or something a little bit bigger, well that's why they make the 375 Legend or something. Can use the AR platform for a heavier caliber to hunt with, okay? So as far as hunting, it scores, and the fact that, with just a few other components, you can use your lower receiver and frame with a different upper receiver and barrel and a different caliber, and you can actually take pretty much like big game in that with it. Hunt deer, bear. So hunting, I'm going to say very versatile. We'll give that a 9. Okay, choice calibers, but we'll give it a 9. It's up there. General purpose shooting and having fun. I recently went out with my family, my brother, my wife, my niece, my great niece who's in high school, and everybody shot an AR, shot 5-10 rounds out of an AR at 100 yards, and everyone got a turn to shoot it with no problems. So for recreational shooting, younger shooters, teenagers, women that usually don't fire a lot of high-powered guns, yes. This is a good gun to teach people marksmanship and act and work, so yes. Scores a high, scores a 10. Okay. Militia weapon. Again, natural disaster. You're isolated. That's that weird category I had because of the events here in North Carolina. Actually, the guys from the American Legion, they loaded a trailer with water, food. We went to all the legions, collected food, water, dry goods to send there as an emergency. And on their own, these fellows loaded the trailer up, drove along the interstate, and tried to get up somewhere to drop this off close to the disaster area. And they said that when they stopped short, where the damage wasn't too bad, to get some information, there were people saying, well, you can leave those things here with us and we'll see that they're distributed. And he said there were actually other organizations trying to convince them to leave their materials there with them, which was miles away from the actual disaster site. And anyway, to make a long story short, they got there, they found where they set up to where you could get to a church, and they were using the church as a distribution point, and like the military and that was coming with a helicopter, getting the supplies and flying them in because the roads were washed out. But they told me all of them had AR-15s with them. Some of them were Vietnam vets, and they said we had rifles loaded and in the vehicle the whole time we were there. We weren't screwing around. It was that bad. There was people hijacking at gunpoint, robbing, and a lot of other things going on. You don't hear about it, but them guys were armed, and this is what they took. So yes, again, scores a 10, maybe a 15 for that. Collector's item. Now, original Colts, any original Colts, these are not. Even the old ones that were made back in the 70s, 80s, that, you know, when Colt sold them, those guns carry a high collector value. And all the different variations and model numbers in that, because Colt had different model numbers for the civilian guns and everything. But the collector's value on any of those guns in decent shape that were made way back when, they cost at the time $500. Now they're worth well over in nice shape. I've seen some that had, you know, the crap beat out of them. They all go over $2K for a nice older Colt. Okay, and there are some rare variations they made that were legal, civilian legal, and you know, if you're a collector, they have a high value. Now, in general, the value of these guns right now has gone down. What do I mean by that? At the time when I could get a AK-47, that's back before the ban and when they were bringing them, even when they were bringing them in afterwards, you could get some sort of an AK-47 for about 350, you know, units. If we don't get burned by AI here. And the average price of an AR, no matter who made it, be it back then it was Bushmaster or something, you know, that period of time. And of course Colts. Colts were always expensive. And actually during the ban, Colt stopped making them, and that's where all these other companies kind of filled in. But a good AR rifle made by Bushmaster or something, that was 700 units. 750. Okay? Then when the panics came, there's some tragedy in the news. I ain't going to go into details, but then everyone's going, they're going to bring the ban back. And this is where, you know, you got a little bit of, you know, people being a little dishonest in that. They figured with the man, and they would run out and buy these guns. Okay, figuring they were going to get banned again. Democrats were in office, it's going to happen. And then they're going to double and triple in value. And people would go and take a loan out and go. And I was in the gun shop picking up a handgun. And this guy come in and says, do you have AR-15s? And he brings them out of brand new. He goes, yeah, I got $750. He goes, how many of them do you have in stock? He goes, 3. And the guy bought all 3 of them. Cash, right there. Okay? And I remember seeing them at a local gun show. They went up, and then nothing happened. Everybody sold out. Everybody was sold out, and then once they got restocked about 4 or 5 months later, they lowered the price down to about 6, 5 something, 6. And now there's this guy trying to sell me a brand new AR in the box for $750, and I said I can walk right over that table there and get the same thing for $625. All right, you got screwed. Now, if you put them up and wait another year, and this is where your value gets screwed up. They had another thing, and I've seen them go from the 7, 6, 7. They put 13. A K plus 3 C nodes. Sold. People were paying over a K for a gun that 6 months, a year before was priced. They're basically doubling the price of the gun. And they all sold. And then there was a spell where you couldn't find them. They were sold out. Everyone bought them. They went in a panic. And then when it finally started, you know, and now the manufacturer's saying, man, let's just kick this stuff out. And they start producing, and everybody and his brother was making barrels, components, you know, putting together guns. Then it starts going lower and lower. Okay? Now, where it used to be within a year and a half, 2 years, What used to be $750 is now $575, $550. Okay, all over. And again, we have the big panic, that last one. And people were paying $7, $8, $9. It didn't get too crazy. You didn't see no $1,300 for a $500 gun, but close. And again, sold out. And then the manufacturers kept going and going. And this is where you got the backlash. These generic guns here are about 4.5 to 5 in general. Whether you put them together or whether you catch a sale or something, that's about what they are. Rounded off about 4 to 5 in that price range. And they're good. I know a lot of people tell you the quality control sucks on that. It's neither here nor there. And that's what it is. Used guns, PSA or Anderson, you're looking down, used guns with scopes and clips and stuff, and they're going about, I see at the auctions, about 3.5, depending on how beat up the gun looks or whatever. But about 3.5 is what a used one, probably even less, okay? If you're just trying to get rid of it quick, you're probably looking at about 3, if not less. And again, condition and what comes with the gun, So value-wise, it's strange. It fluctuates. So value, collector's item and value, I'm going to have to go with 5 because it bounces too much. It's unstable. Right now, it's a buy. You should get one of these at this point in time. So it's a tough one. Alright, ammo and prices. Probably 55 grain ammo is plentiful there and probably the cheapest for any type of a gun like this, compared to 30 carbine, 7.62 by 55 and that and this and that. This 223, 5.56 ammunition is plentiful. They still have it, even though they've raised the price a bit because of inflation. It's still all over. You can still get it, all different types and manufacturers. There's no shortage right at the moment. I know the influencers say there is, but there's not. It's available. So ammunition is plentiful. And that's where also in a disaster or shit hits the fan thing, ammunition is plentiful. It's a common caliber. It's a common gun that people own. They have spare parts. It's the nuts. So ammo prices and availability, going to give it a 9 because of the increases. Okay, but it's there. It's easy to get. Shouldn't be a problem. Reliability because when they mass produce that, you can get some crappier components in these guns. The upper receivers and the lower receivers, it depends on how well they keep the tolerance. I believe there's only 2 places that make the forgings. So it's just who machined it, how they did it, if they kept the tolerances and that. Okay? Barrels, same thing. They you got some hokey barrels that maybe ain't that good to where you get super match grade barrels that cost, just the barrel alone costs what 2 of these generic ones cost, okay? So your reliability, and also you can go to the top tier guns that are 2K, 3K, whatever, and they're more of a custom build super precision gun. Okay, so if you wish to use this platform in a much higher grade, it is available. Okay, if you got deep enough pockets. Alright, so, and supposedly your reliability goes up. Most people's problems with the reliability in the gun not working well is A, either using real crappy ammo, or B, they don't disassemble, clean, and maintain the weapon. That is the number one thing. I knew a guy that won that Daniel's Defense, or so it was like a 2.5K rifle. He won it at a raffle. And he took the thing out and would just shoot the cheapest crap ammo in there, take the whole family out. And he would shoot this gun till he got about 800 rounds through it. Then it stopped working. It was doing stuff, wouldn't eject. I said, "Did you clean it?" He goes, "What do you mean?" And I sat there and showed him how to disassemble a gun, disassemble a bolt and carrier, and clean everything, clean the chamber, clean the barrel out, clean all the carbon and crap out. Then he would take the gun, and he said, "I was about ready to send it back to the manufacturer. It only got 700 rounds through it, without cleaning." And I'm like, and I know he's running that steel case, that stuff is bad. Whatever that powder's made out of, that residue, if you do not clean it out and you shoot the gun again and heat it up, it actually solidifies and bakes that crap in there where you got to scrape it out, like with a little metal tool or something, or brass brush to get that loose out of all the nooks and crannies. But, reliability, if it's maintained in that, some of these I've fired, not a problem. And your magazines are good and everything's cool. Alright, so reliability, a lot of it has to do with the operator. But they're reliable guns. There are other guns like a AK-47 or a SKS that don't need the meticulous maintenance, which would be a better thing if you don't like cleaning your guns. So reliability, I'm going to give that a 7. And a lot of that is also the operators. Parts, repair, and accessories. Okay. There are all kinds of parts, and right now there's all kinds of deals. They can't move it, they can't sell it. You can customize these guns and change things out fairly simply. Okay. The average person can learn how to do it and change handguard sights. You got flat tops, you can do this. You can get them with the pin thing here, clamp on this iron sight, then put a riser block with the remainder of the pick rail here, and mount some sort of a red dot or a scope on a riser block, and then take it off and still have your iron sights. You can configure this gun so many different ways, and there's so many accessories and options out there that it's unreal. Flash hiders, whatever you want. So parts are easy to find. Just make sure you're getting good quality parts. Accessories, like I said, magazines are another one. Okay, magazines right now, if you have even if you don't have an AR, you can get these quality polymer ones and even some of these steel ones. If you like the steel ones better, you're looking at under a 10 spot. If you buy 10 of them, you're looking for some brand name stuff, maybe a 10 spot. These Korean ones where the paint chips off of them, you can get them for 8. And you can get the real cheap ones that if you leave them loaded, they split open like these here. You can get them for a little over 5 beans, like 6 units. And you can get drums. You can get 5-shot, 10-shot. Drums, 50, 100 rounds. There are belt-fed uppers. You can modify these guns to get a belt-fed upper. And there's all kinds of scopes, lasers, things that will clamp on here. It's endless. And flip-up iron sights that are removable. So yeah, it scores a 10. And overall, right at the moment, we're in a lull. These things trade like stocks. Right now we're in a lull. And right now, if you can afford it, of course, with the economy collapsing like it is, now's the time to buy. If you can snag one of these for 4.5, and mags, ammo, it's kind of like a must-have. If you're interested in guns and just want a level of protection, if you still live in an area where you can buy these, this is like kind of a must-have type of thing. You should have this just in your general lineup of firearms, like along with a 22, a pump 12 gauge, good high-powered rifle with a scope or some sort of a hunting gun of a larger caliber than this, or at least get the upper receivers and that, and you can configure your gun to shoot a larger caliber, more along the lines for hunting. Alright guys, that's it. Thank you and stay tuned.